and a certificate of marriage was produced to that effect. Counsel argued that this marriage supersedes all the other rights, including the right of the alleged first wife, and I agree with the counsel. If Magdalene Waithera Mburu was alive and a party to this suit, this court would have handed the body of the deceased to her for burial as a spouse of the deceased, as defined under Section 2 of the Marriage Act 2014. Unfortunately, the said Magdalene preceded the deceased hearing. So not preceded, sorry. I think I've started now misreading my own handwriting. I'll take that again because it gives a different meaning to what the court is saying. And I'm saying that unfortunately, they said Magdalene predeceased the deceased hearing. So then how does the law instruct this court to do? What does the law instruct this court to do? In the case of Grace Irigiri Silas, which I quoted herein in the judgment, the court is stated as follows. And I quote again, as the right to bury the deceased is premised on the proximity of kinship to the deceased, the person identified in order of priority is the spouse. If unwilling, the children of the deceased, of course. If unwilling, the parents of the deceased. If unwilling, the siblings, those are brothers and sisters of the deceased. If unwilling, the clan. If unwilling, the state. The priority is in that order. End of quotes. The relationship of the first, second, and third plaintiffs as the biological children was not challenged. No DNA test application was ever placed before court, and neither did the parties' pleadings raise it. Even though, once again, DW8 sought to cast doubt as to the paternity of the three, or part of them, in his testimony, such evidence is incongruent with the pleadings and bears no force of law. As I've mentioned here before, that parties are bound by their pleadings. The three plaintiffs would therefore rank in priority as the children of the deceased in the absence of the spouse of the deceased. However, it is not lost in court's mind, and there is sufficient evidence on record that the deceased was a family patriarch who brought up his children together, including those of his wife, Magdalene. There is sufficient evidence again on record from both sides that from around 1983, check that again. There is sufficient evidence that from around 1983, all the children recognized each other as siblings until their separation when the deceased moved to Gilgil, which is said to be in the 90s. The court's view is that had the deceased, and by deceased I mean Mburu Kinani, pursued a legal process of adoption or adopting the children of Magdalene, they would all be his legal children for all intents and purposes. It is a timeless maxim of equity, that equity looks as done that which ought to be done. this court is not about to separate the children of Magdalene from the deceased, whom they described as the only father they knew. I thus determine that they too have the right to bury the deceased. And I further determine that the body of the deceased shall be released to the joint children of the two houses. However, for ease of execution of the court order and to avoid unnecessary confrontations, the court has picked the first plaintiff, that is Heidi Sweri Momburu, and the second defendant, Rosemary Kirika, as to be the specific persons that will receive the body of the deceased from the interested party, that is Kijabe Mission Hospital. The advocates on record for both parties shall make arrangements intended to facilitate compliance with the court order, which shall equally be served upon the OCS of the station nearest to the hospital, which is the interested party in this matter. Now, turning to the question of the place of burial, a lot of evidence has gone into the deceased wishes, and most of the defense witnesses pointed to the deceased wish to be buried in Gilgil. DW7 in particular produced a video recording in which she stated that she recorded the deceased in 2020 while hospitalized at St. Mary's Mission Hospital, expressing his wish to be buried in Gilgil. AW7 further told the court that she later forwarded the said video to the first defendant herein, who unfortunately is now deceased, who was marked as the next of kin. And when cross-examined by counsel for the plaintiffs, the witness stated that she could not remember the nurse to whom she handed over this information at the changeover of a shift. Equally, the resolutions made, Equally, the resolutions made through the meetings that were held in Thika, resolving to have the deceased buried in Gilgil, were impeached by PW2, PW3, PW4, and PW5, who denounced
an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. As many of you have been aware or have been following the news, there has been a burial dispute that has pitted my clients against some other people over there who have been claiming to be children of my client's father, but that has not been the issue. But the issue before the court was primarily the burial of this man who was known as Mboro Kenani. Mboro Kenani died last year on the 20th of November 2024 at AIC Kijabe Mission Hospital, and since then there has been a burial dispute whereby the Deputy Governor of Kiambu, Rosemary Kirika, has been involved as a stepdaughter to the late Mboro Kenani. The legal protracted battle came to an end on the 12th of June 2025, where the court pronounced itself and rightfully handed the body for burial to my clients, who are the biological children of the late Mboro Kenani. However, the body was only to be released to my clients together with Honorable Rosemary Kirika. Now, my clients have tried for so long to get in touch with Honorable Rosemary Kirika to go and present herself at AIC Kijabe Hospital so that they can release the body of Mboro Kenani, who died at 92 years old. The old man is still in the mortuary, and Rosemary Kirika has refused to abide by court's orders by presenting herself at AIC Kijabe Hospital. Now, this is a subversion of justice, and as we all know that being Kenyans, we are guided by our principles of the law, and amongst those principles is respect of court orders. However, Honorable Rosemary Kirika, in her own wisdom and that of whoever is advising her, have refused to heed to the court's orders and intentionally frustrated the enjoyment of that court order. And we say this with so much conviction because we tend to believe that as long as Mzemburo Kinani is lying in the mortuary, she's not feeling anything, because anyway that was not her real father. Therefore, you want to call upon Honorable Rosemary Kirika to present yourself at AIC Kijabe Mission Hospital so that you can lay the old man to rest. It is an embarrassment to the constitution of this country and to the very people you had in Kiambu. It's a huge embarrassment that you're out there sitting and an old man who died last year is still in the mortuary. Therefore, I will also call upon your senior, Honorable Kimani Wamatangi, to call you to order, because this is not how you conduct yourself. This is not the way that once you are given a power, you do as you wish. The court gave you a power. The power was that the body was not to be released to my client without your involvement. But now you've chosen to abuse that power, and you have decided against every other moral possibility to continue detaining the body of our client. Kindly, we appeal to you that present yourself so that the body of our client's father can be buried. Thank you.
My name is Wamboi, Shadrach Wamboi, an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, a colleague of Mr. Stanley Kenyanjui, and serving under the directions and the authority of Mr. Danstan Omari. Now, as you've heard the eloquent submissions made by my colleague, one thing is clear, that there is a dead man lying in a cold room, aged about 90 years and above. This man died sometime last year, and because of a protracted legal battle, we've not had the opportunity of interring the remains of the deceased. Public policy so requires that if someone is dead, what should happen to the remains is either they are interred, buried somewhere, either at their village or at the public cemeteries, or the remains are cremated. That is what public policy requires. It is not in the best interest of the country to have dead bodies in cold rooms for longer than is reasonable. There was a decision that was returned by the Honorable Gitonga on this matter and settled the whole issue. As it appears, the only person that is standing between the decent send-off of the late and the execution of that court order is the Honorable Rosemary, the Deputy Governor of Kiambu County. One thing must be clear, and this message will go straight to the Honorable Rosemary. Mheshimiwa, it is not in order that you continue to enjoy samosas, sausages, and the good tidings that come with the taxpayers' money, to sit in those comfortable leather sofa sets, while your stepdad is lying in a cold room, while you have denied the family, the legitimate family of your stepdad, the opportunity of interring or cremating the remains of their dad. So I want to ask you with humility that you consider calling yourself to order. Consider doing the needful, respecting the court order by willfully and willingly surrendering yourself to go and be in the company of the other person that was ordered by the court, so that the remains of your late stepdad can be handed over to you and the other person for the purpose of interring. It does not speak very good of you as a leader to continue being in office and frustrating the legitimate children of the deceased. It does not speak of you as a good leader for you to witness the frustration of your other siblings or your other stepbrothers and stepsisters while you continue enjoying taxpayers' money. So I urge you with humility, before the court can also strike again and make the necessary directions in this matter, that you do the needful. Ensure that we give the deceased a decent send-off. It is not good staying in a cold room. One day, when your time comes, you will know that indeed it is not good staying in a cold room for longer than is necessary. What is important, what should be done to the remains of the living is interring them or cremating them. I rest my submissions.